could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Yeah, and times are changing everywhere. Do we dream and do we dare? It's up to you, the door is open wide. Feel the rhythm of today, learn the part and join the play. The world is here, let's take it for a ride. You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Larger, larger than, bigger, bigger than, living hopes and dreams. Every boy and girl, higher, higher than, brighter, brighter than, all you wanted. You know, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. You know you could.
Good morning and welcome to the channel Grand Colombia and welcome to another Coffee Time Live. And I had a last minute glitch, so my little control panel isn't working, but there's a manual way to do it, so I'll kind of muddle through. Got a lot to talk about today. A timely topic, what's going on with all the forest fires. So we'll discuss that. First, related, what's the weather? Right now it's about 79 degrees. And let's see, today we're going to have a high of about 84 and a low of about 65. And let's see, where is it? Manual, remember. The exchange rate, we're at 39.02. We've been around 39 all week. I think it got to 39.80 one day. And let's get to the list here. Okay. So the coffee meeting was pretty good. There's about 5 of us, lasted about an hour. So that keeps chugging along. And got a couple things locally to talk about. I'm going to talk about Turtle's move and show you his new place. And then we're going to talk about why has it been so freaking hot? And some theories that are running rampant in the gringo community, particularly in Medellin. Maybe you can imagine. And politicians are jumping on it. It's something. All right, but first of all, my neighbor, who shall remain anonymous, every so often he's a I'd say a camera buff, electronic junkie. He's a master of many trades, and every so often he sends me some photos that are very cool, and I probably don't ever tell him, but I show them here once in a while. Here's one that we had a clear day, which we don't get a lot of because we're in the clouds. And it actually shot back a few mountain ranges. He's next door to where I live. And so when I'm out on my balcony, this is what you're seeing, except you don't get to see it. And so that's very cool. And so those people that say all the glaciers have melted off the mountains here, obviously that's not the case. People say things without knowing firsthand. And he sent me another one here. This was later in the day, obviously. Don't see any clouds. And almost full moon. I think last night was our full moon. So that's pretty cool. Let me run down the comments here. Juka, thank you for the contribution. I appreciate it. Will be a little late, but better late than never. Absolutely. Of course, you can always play these back. Not quite the same. And Jerry, thank you very much. It's certainly appreciated. I say it, but I actually mean it. Mr. Sawicki, morning all from rainy Seattle. Turtle, good morning from Socorro. We're going to show those things you sent me. I wish I probably should have gotten some commentary from you, but I'll muddle through based on what I think you said. If I make a mistake, well. Rob, good morning from Fort Lauderdale. What do you have? 1,390 days to go, something like that? Sebastian, how you doing? You still here, or did you go back yet? Turtle, 72 degrees. Nice. Yeah, he's in a little cooler place than he was before. He climbed the mountains. Robert Stewart, morning, buenas, from Austin, Texas. How you doing? 54 here. I think the coldest it's gotten here is maybe 62. Rachel, how you doing? Good morning, Lauren. Wow, what a great photo. They are pretty stunning. And like I say, in the past, I've shown them here and there. Eagle, prayers to victims. William Hutchinson, hola. Now, this is the William Hutchinson that's my friend and Mike's friend. There's a different one here in Armenia, and he's a different one. This is the good guy one. Well, I'm not saying, yeah, you know what? He's our friend from Dallas, Texas, or Texas, Dallas. And Robert, thank you very much. It is certainly appreciated. Okay, so we got through the chats. We're going to, I forgot to turn my phone off. You guys hearing my phone go off? It's quite annoying. Okay, so here's the deal. Turtle came to Colombia and moved to Manizales. Awesome place, great place, my favorite city, even though I don't live there. And I keep trying to direct people towards Manizales because I know what Manizales has. Well, he didn't want to leave, but he got a little pacemaker, and he had to get to a lower altitude. He had a problem and had to move to a lower altitude. So it wasn't a matter of choice. So he moved to Bucaramanga. Now, I did warn him that it gets hot there. And I don't mean the effect that we're having right now. It's kind of hellish there a lot of the year. But for a number of reasons, it just it didn't suit him. And this is a good example of, you know, it's difficult to throw in all your chips unless you've been there for a while. Now, he didn't have much of a choice. And he did go and visit for a while and walked around for a while, you know, trying to measure it out. But it is a difficult thing. And he had to pay to move his entire household. He's got a lot of really nice stuff from Manizales all the way to Bucaramanga. And it's quite a hike. And then he decided it's just the prices keep going up. He's on limited income also. It's already kind of it's stretching him out. And what's he going to do next year? You know, a bunch of reasons, some personal. So he decided to hunt around and see what was out there, not too far from Bucaramanga. And he considered Sand Hill, and he found a place called Socorro. That's with a double R, and I don't roll R's very well. Socorro. And I don't know if he fell in love with it, but he was certainly enamored with it. And he also, like all these smaller places, 20, 30, 40,000 people, costs are considerably less, rents are much lower, and he found an amazing place. So that's where we start off. And keep forgetting my control panel's not working. So I got a thing here, I can't really stop it, and it's going to run for about 3 minutes, and I can talk through part of it. Do you been to La Tebaida? How is that place? I guess the weather is nice. The weather sucks there. It's hotter than 10,000 MFers, and it's riddled with issues. But outside of that, it's okay. All right. Yep, I've been there many times, dozens of times. Let's get back to Turtle. So on his way, he was passenger in this car. Driver got thrown, and I think he was a couple hours out of Bucaramanga, I think he said. So maybe an hour to where he was going, and it did a nice job. But this is his apartment set up. We'll show you more here. I asked him to send me a few pictures of, his neighborhood. He is on a bit of an incline, but he's worked his way around that. Pretty clever. He's met a family. I think I may have got this wrong, but the family actually owns the apartment, so they're his landlords. But they're also very nice people. They have a little tienda, and he's become one of the family. They have a farm, so he gets fresh vegetables, and they got he's made an agreement. I don't mean to talk over here. He's made an agreement to have him run him into town a couple times a week, so he doesn't have to climb that hill. And here's a tour of his place. Gorgeous place, 1,100,000.
This is in slow drive.
This would be 120 square meters, a little more. And this would be, probably 2,200,000 here in Armenia. And it would be probably 5 or 6 million in Medellin. I'm quite jealous, but I can't move there. I mean, I could, but I can't. I mean, I really have my ties here.
One bathroom.
I can't hear when I know he doesn't talk much in this. And if I'm talking over him, I apologize.
This eventually will be my gym/junk room. This will be a guest room. That's Yarla. Hello, Yarla.
Hello.
And for the time being, it's Lily's banyo. Complete bath. This is my bedroom. It's not finished yet by any means. In a month you won't recognize it. It'll be totally decorated and possibly painted a different color, etc., etc. Walk-in closet. Double basin bathroom. And of course, I'll end up in the toilet.
Junto a la vía de los estudiantes se construye Torres, Calle Real, segunda etapa. Dos torres de 10 pisos, con 32 apartamentos.
Elevator.
Diseño exclusivo, zona social, piscina, jacuzzi y amplios espacios para su familia. Visite nuestra sala de ventas, separe su apartamento y gane la valorización. En Torres, Calle Real, segunda etapa, creamos espacios para...
This is a little tienda that they have, and he had this old laptop kicking around, and the family, their daughter had nothing to work with, and so he donated it. Okay, so I think I got that right, and I saw a lot of questions here. Not to buy the... Now, to those, I actually know somebody who lives out there and he loves it. So that's the thing, you know, to each their own. Of course, he lives in a, it's actually right next to LA Den, which is very upscale, gorgeous area. So there's that. Robert says, that's a gorgeous place. Whoops. Let me, where are we? It's a gorgeous place. There we go. Cool place, cool price, 1.1 million. Juka, glad you made it. Pretty early, actually. Where is that apartment? Socorro. What a price deal. What's the rent? Just said, 1.1. What a strato. I don't know. I don't know if he told me. It's probably 5, maybe 6. Probably 5. Turtle, if you're on, maybe you can respond to that. But don't get too. I've talked about the Strato in the past, but I noticed some people kind of getting hung up on it. Like it's giving them certain types of information that they can kind of count on. And that's not the case. You can live in a Strata 6 and not be like maybe in the best. I don't know how to put it. It does have some indications, but it's not a do-all of everything. It's a formula. Like I live in Stratus 4, but if you put the same building in a different spot closer to the hospital, for example, it would be 5 or 6. So it's kind of hard to say. No Strato. Okay. It is a country town. Ben, good morning. Better late than never. I showed off those photos. You missed it. Good morning, Ben. Let's see. Good idea to talk about different pueblos around Armenia. It's actually not around Armenia. It's quite a ways north. It's a few hours south of Bucaramanga, and it's relatively close. I think it's less than an hour from San Gil. Turtle town is too small to be divided by stratus. Yeah, that could very well be. I know I have a friend in Medellin that's in a 3, but has a much nicer place than a friend in 5 in a different area. Right. You know, and I don't want to get off track because, you know, I've got quite a bit to discuss today. I just wanted to drop that idea that if you think you've got it down with a stratus, you probably don't. So, oh, you meant in Candillo. Just keep that in mind. Don't put everything into the idea of that. I had somebody say, "Oh, you're in a Stratus 4, so it must be dumpier than you're telling us." It's the highest Stratus out here because it's so far from the hospital. And so by saying so far, it's probably a mile. but they have this formula. 19 kilometers. Yeah, but you know, Turtle, come on. You know the kilometers here. So that's going to be what? 10, 12 miles? Except it's going to take you near an hour to get there because we're in the Andes Mountains. Okay. Mike, hello from Kuala Lumpur. What the heck are you doing there? But hello. Glad to see you. And I often don't reply, but Mike sends me maybe once a week. I don't know. Every so often, he'll send me a link without commentary. And it'll be usually either something I'm aware of, or it'll be something I'm not aware of, and it'll be very interesting. And I just want to tell you, I do appreciate him, even though I generally don't respond. But you know, you've been on this channel for a long time, and you know, I think you understand why. Okay, let's see. What do we got to next? Now we're to the crux of it. Okay. Unusually high heat. Well, before we get, let's see. Damn, I hate this manual. Just not working. Oh, and I didn't show you outdoors. Can I show you outdoors? Let's see. There we go. Kind of hazy. You know, one thing this place is not is muggy, but you've been feeling a little of the humidity going on. I wouldn't say muggy, but I'm not used to feeling humidity in the air, and I've been feeling it. Okay, so before I get to the fires and all that, a little good news out of El Nino. This was peak of El Nino phenomenon. Products with stable prices and others with a downward trend. The local farmers here have had pretty decent crops with only a couple exceptions, better than normal. And because of that, that helps bring prices down, because if you've got more product than usual, supply and demand, and so that's a good thing. And I love especially what happened to eggs last week. That's been great. All right, and the next one here I've got, okay, fires all over Colombia. Colombia's been declared a national emergency. There's some 20-some countries that have sent help of various sorts. Fires in Colombia leave damage that would take up to 50 years to recover biodiversity. Some of the areas that have burned were some areas that had animal life that doesn't exist anywhere else. I imagine they mostly survive, but it will take some time to recover. You know, what do they say in Jurassic Park? Life has a way, or finds a way. And some of the help was the rain effect firefighting system, and that's what they call it, the rain effect. Just arrived in Colombia. It's an airplane full of internal tanks. You've seen them in the U.S., especially in California. They're all over the place, where they go out and scoop up water, come back and dump it on the fires. And it's been extremely helpful. And that came from Peru. So thank you, Peru. And here we go. Okay. So we had a record high temperature in Honda, which is a little town at the very north end of Tolima. It's probably closer to Manizales than it is to Ibagué, but if you go from Manizales to Bogota, you're going to pass through Honda. And it's a cool little town. I've been wanting to go and take a shot of some of the things. You're seeing here the Magdalena River. That's a major river here in Colombia, and you got people out cooling down and always fishing and things like that. But it got as high as 44 centigrade, which is about 111 degrees Fahrenheit. And it just doesn't do that. Now, the politicians, including, my best buddy, Petro, the first thing they could do, they fell all over themselves declaring climate change. This is all a result of climate change. Therefore, we have to have these government programs, like they try to do in the U.S. They want their version of a Green New Deal, and it just doesn't fly, but every chance they get to say it's there. So amongst the clutter of the actual wildfires and things going on, you got people kind of trying to jump on that bandwagon. Now, I realize that when I tell you about the heats and that sort of thing, we're in the Andes Mountains. It just doesn't get that hot. Or I shouldn't say that. It's a very rare occurrence. And I think 17 something was the last time the temperatures got up that hot in that area. So it's not like it hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened in this generation. Okay. So we've got fires all over Colombia. Now, they aren't necessarily massive, like if you're in the U.S., you're used to them going on for hundreds of miles. But for here, they're big. They have impact, and they're scattered. There's around Bogota, and they're just scattered all over. Fortunately, we haven't had any here. Last year, we had a couple pop up, but they got put out pretty quick. But like I say, it's been all over Colombia. And the forest fires, because we've had a lack of rain, and we're having the El Nino effect kind of at its peak, and you get higher temperatures, and you get a decrease. In some areas you get more rain, in other areas you get a decrease. It all depends on certain patterns. As a matter of fact, last year, towards the end of the year, we had a little extra rain because it was a different pattern. Okay, so we could point to the El Nino, and it's true. But then there's a cause to where does the El Nino come from? And El Nino has existed long before the industrial age, for example. El Ninos come and go every handful of years. And it goes back as long as they've tracked them. And they've tracked them back well into the 1700s. So it's a natural phenomenon, and it has its cause. Now, the rumor that's running kind of rampant in social media, particularly Facebook, and it was invented by a few gringos and spread around, is that it's these two guys on a motorcycle that are running out and setting the fires. And then it gets parroted. And I belong to 10, 12 Facebook pages. And most of the time I kind of ignore them, but occasionally something will come up. Or if I'm trying to find some particular topic, I'll look not for what people comment on generally, but very often somebody will offer up certain links. And so, I'll use it like that. Well, it was just so ludicrous on the face of it, because these things are spread all over Colombia. They all happen within a few days. Do they really think, when it takes 3.5 hours to go from Bucaramanga to where Turtle's living, which is like that on the map compared to Colombia, Do they really think these two guys were able to moto their way around and light fires around in Colombia? I mean, they would have had to been flying and parachute out to do that. It was just such a ludicrous thing. But it spreads because you have a lot of people that are just idiots and they'll just, they'll repeat things. I'm here to tell you that's bogus. Now I'm going to tell you my theory. And what I'm going to tell you isn't anything new. It's been known forever, but nobody ever seems to connect them. This was something from the end of last year. Whoop. Sun's rampant activity cycle likely to peak January 2024. This was back in November. Now, well, I've got some quotes, so rather than me tell you, I'll just read the quotes. Bear with me, I have to find it here. Solar cycle 25, which is the one that we're in right now, may be the strongest in history. Well, we don't really know because I haven't tracked it. In history as in maybe the last 300 years. Scientists track and predict when the next maximum will occur on the basis of a number of sunspots which speckle the face of the sun. And when they're talking about maximums, they're talking about coronal mass ejections, and it's when the largest, as the name sounds. The last solar minimum, which marked the end of the solar cycle 24, took place in 2019. Solar cycle 24 was comparatively quiet, and the NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, predicted that the solar cycle 25 would follow suit and would have a subdued activity and will peak July 2025. However, let me get this off the screen here. Nothing went as per the prediction. Since solar activity started increasing, it has exceeded official predictions, and solar cycle 25 is now likely to be among the strongest since the recording of solar cycles started back in 1755. Robert Lehman of NASA and Scott McIntosh of the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research, in their predictions, said that the solar maximum will be stronger than assumed and will take place in mid to late 2024. The NOAA last month, and that was last October, revised its prediction and announced that the maximum peak is now likely to happen between January and October of 2024. So the sun's effect on the planet are extremely well known, documented, it's demonstratable, it's measurable. The good news is, the sun's a ball, and if the Earth is here and they have a huge corona ejection and it's over here, it doesn't affect the Earth that much. It still has an effect, but it's kind of like Russian roulette, so we're here and they can shoot off in all kinds of directions. If there's ever a maximum that actually hits or glances off of the Earth, it will penetrate the magnetic shield. It will wipe out electronics. There will be no banking. The energy grid in the United States is not hardened for it. It will crash, and it will be too massive to be put back up in a few weeks. Now, this isn't to scare you. I'm just saying that the sunspot activity and the mass ejections have been taking place forever. And sometimes they get really fierce. This is what heats up oceans. You can track the heating of the oceans, the El Niños, to sunspot activity. It's something that you can look at. You can see the sunspot, see when they have the peak and when it's mild, and when it's not. You can compare that to the El Niños and the effect that they have. I got interested in the sunspot activity many years ago from reading a farmer's almanac that didn't tie the two together directly. But there was a line that I read once that sunspots occur in a cycle approximately every 13 years. And during that, you have a peak highs and peak lows during that cycle. And then it starts over again. And I was very curious, living in upstate New York with wicked winters and endless snowfall, why some winters we would barely see any snow at all. And then others, we'd be snowed in for a week. You know, it was like, why does it do that? But after a period of time, you begin to realize, all right, we get 2 or 3 years of the really mild winters, and then it kind of goes to an average, and then we get a couple years of the really fierce winters, and it cycles like that. And so I've been kind of tracking back when I was doing a lot of in the university. It was major in science, engineering, and I did one of my deep dives into sunspots and the activity. And so I've always believed that that's the effect primarily on the climate, because it's such a strong, fierce effect, and we can see it in many ways, how it directly affects what goes on in the climate. And that's why I have to gag when the politicians, of course there's climate change. Climate changes constantly. It changes every day. There's been 5 catastrophic climate changes in the Earth's history where everything would get practically wiped out and kind of start over from a clean slate. And if you look at the time span of those, we could very well be approaching another one of those. And the sun has had some very unusual activity lately, and you're seeing more scientific articles written about it because of that. And there's kind of an underlying fear that we're basically helpless to do anything about it. In the meantime, we've got politicians that are just trying to build their resume and garner favor and get more power by, pointing to climate change. I'm not telling you these things to be political. I'm saying that we can't do much about nature except adapt to it the best we can. We've got the El Nino. Does it make me want to not live in Armenia? Absolutely not. It is considerably hotter for me because I don't really like hot weather. I used to, but that was long ago. I don't like hot weather, and when your average temperature goes up 7 or 8 degrees, I'm not thrilled with it. It's still not miserable. I mean, I'd rather be here than, practically anywhere in the U.S. this last summer because of the heat wave that they were experiencing. But it doesn't make me want to change here. So, people write and say, well, you had an earthquake. Why do you live there? Everywhere has earthquakes. We just had 2 earthquakes yesterday that I never felt, because one was 92 miles below the surface, and the other was 104, I think it was, below the surface. Never felt them. You've got on the Ring of Fire, which encapsulates a good portion of the population of the world, you got lots of volcanic and earthquake activity. If I lived in Oklahoma, I could be in danger of earthquake. I've talked about the number of earthquakes they have a day in Oklahoma. It's just that they generally are, like level 2 or 3, which you usually won't even feel. But things are happening to actually cause those, which means at some point you could get one that's 6 or 7 or 8. So where in the world are you going to go to escape all possible dangers? But when you look at it, when you study it, you'll see that these things have such a long period of time generally before you get reoccurrences. For example, we're fairly close to a fault line here in Armenia. It's a minor one. It's not any San Andreas or anything like that, but there is one. And the historic frequency of an earthquake as a result of that fault line is about once every 4,000 years of a magnitude of any consequence. The one we had the other day, like there was no damage, nobody was hurt, and it was a 6 point something, and what was it, 12 miles? I mean, it was relatively close. The buildings are built for it. Volcano, yeah, we got volcanoes, but they're, several mountain ranges away. Worst that would happen here in Armenia, I suspect, although you can't really predict, if we had something go up like Yellowstone National Park, then that would be a different story. But it doesn't appear that these are the kind of volcanoes like that. If I meant to say volcano. The worst we'll get is some ash that we have to stay indoors for a day or two. But the way the wind pattern goes, it probably, the wind pattern goes in direction away back towards the volcano. So I've considered these things, I've looked at them, but whether it's an El Nino, which you get in California also, whether it's freezing 30 below temperature that you get when the Arctic blast comes down out of Canada and covers much of the mid and east of the United States. Tornadoes, God forbid, we don't get tornadoes here. We don't get hurricanes here. So, I mean, you got to pick your poison. And no, I don't panic about it. And I'm responding to a number of messages, from last week. And how can you live where it's that hot? Well, it's that hot right now. It's true. But at some point here, it's going to go away. It actually leveled off for a while. Just in the last couple of weeks, it kind of came back with a vengeance. And yeah, we're having some high temperatures, but we're not breaking any records right now. But it will moderate and it will go back to normal, and we'll be back in our mid to high 70s, which is glorious. So, and hopefully that answers. Of course, I'm not panicked about it, and I gave a lot of thought before I came here, and I've done a lot of studying. I spent weeks studying the earthquake of '99, trying to get a handle on it, and had an awful lot of very dry reading. So I'm confident. Let's look at these. How far is the fire from Armenia? It looks like, well, it depends on which one. I stopped tracking when I, at some point. And I don't know how many fires they were, but they're scattered all over Colombia. We have had, like I said, last year we had a couple of wildfires not far from here. And I know that there's been a critical warning in Quindío near Salento. So, I mean, it's possible. On the other hand, I will appreciate that they did call a national emergency and got in all that extra help. And that single airplane from Peru has made a huge difference, because these fires, it's such a wet, green area normally that it's going to take a while for that to go away. And that's why I feel a little bit of humidity, just because everything's so green and wet year round. And that, I think that gives us a little buffer. And that's why these fires aren't just running wild like they do in California. And so an airplane come along and dump a load and actually put out a fire, or maybe go get a second one and put it out. Oh my God, normal Central Texas weather. Yeah, well, okay. Well, hopefully I put it in perspective. I'm spoiled because I want to have the kind of weather that this place has. And, if it jumps up 7 degrees, it's like, whew. Sebastian. I've been to Honda in 2022. Airbnb is expensive there. Yeah, it's kind of a popular place because there's a few things of interest there, but it's also quite the crossroads. If you're going from Bogota to Bucaramanga, that's one major route, Manizales to Bogota, from Ibagué to Bucaramanga. You know, it's kind of like it's perfectly situated to be a crossroads. And you have a lot of people making that travel, and that's going to run up the prices of something like an Airbnb. Turtle, the most exclusive suburbs in Bucaramanga were evacuated because of the fires. Do you have fiber optic internet at the place? Turtle. Oh, okay, you were already on top of it. Yes, 150 megs. Most of the times we don't have direct hit with solar storms. That's true. How the coronal mass injection, we are affected by the storms, and that's where the sunspots come in, and that's all around the sun. And so that extra radiation is where the effect comes from. The coronal mass ejection is what very rarely hits. And if you go back 200 years, it wasn't that critical, but today it would shut down modern society. And nobody's talking about it in politics, and nobody's making a move to do anything. You know, they want to plant trees, but there's more trees on the earth than there's been forever because, you know, they say, well, CO2, you know, you got to put a carbon tax. Yeah, but that's plant food. Think about what you're saying. Okay, Mike Carroll, anyone that has owned a satellite dish gets sunspot activity in March and lose channel for a week or two. That's what it's been like for 40 years. My concern is more about global war than global warming or sunstorms, just my opinion. How about started fires by lasers? No, that's something, you know, that crackpots in the U.S. like to talk about, but no, yeah, it's ridiculous. I hope you do not have that kind of fires there. Libby, I know you read too many of those things, and I'm always talking to her. You know, it's like in another life I was a pilot, and she's always talking about these so-called chemtrails. If you're a pilot, you won't find any pilot on this planet that has ever come forward and said, oh yeah, these are chemtrails, because they're not. They're vapor trails. And it's a byproduct of the engines, and it's just how it is. You get a certain altitude and certain humidity conditions and temperatures, and you're going to get these trails. So, you know, this idea, well, they're running them all across, you know, and it's like a grid pattern. Well, it's called flight pattern. and people mostly in populated areas talking, well, that's where more of the planes, you'll see them. And you go out in the middle of the country and you might see one every once in a while, you know, and then you got we got the big $1 million lasers, you know, on the back of a dolphin up in space, you know, pointing down and starting fires for what? What would be the purpose of that? You know, you have to put logic and reason in some of these. One time, let's say we got some super secret laser, and you know, we got it mounted up on a satellite, and maybe they run a test. Okay, that's cool, but the amount of energy that these take, it would require a satellite to be so massive that everybody on this planet would know about it because you could see it. Think about it. They have lasers now on the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier. How big is an aircraft carrier? Granted, it's not all for that, but if you look at the power plant, it's nuclear, on there, the size that it had to be with today's technology in order to power that laser and everything else on that ship, it's just massive. Elon Musk might be able to get something like that off the ground, but You know, he's next month he's going to launch that one, but until then, there hasn't even been capability to do something like that. So some of these things, they just defy logic. And at that point, you have to say, why am I wasting my time on things that don't make any sense? You know, there's enough to do in my life that, you know, makes more sense to me, like go out and enjoy myself. Okay, what do we have here? Has inflation started to level off? Are you seeing any prices returning to prices off 1 year ago? No, that's not going to happen. What you have is, you know, the inflation got up 12, 13, 14%, depending on what you're talking about. There were some things that got up over 20%. Some things only went up 5%. It averages maybe around 12%, let's say. So when you have that inflation reduced, let's say you cut it in half. So it's now at 6%. You still have a 6% inflation rate. It's still inflation. And so when you get something like the, you know, the fruits or the vegetables that I was talking about earlier, and you're seeing a reduction in the price, it's a reduction in the inflated price. It still isn't going back to what it was pre-COVID. I wish. You know, I'm real happy about the price of eggs, and you know, it's practically in half, but it's still higher than it was before COVID. So I see that a lot in U.S. politics, where you have people trying to brag about how, you know, the inflation's reversed itself and everything's great and we're back to normal, and it's not. Look at your prices 2 years ago and look at your prices now. Maybe it stopped growing as fast, but it's still growing. It's just growing at a slower rate. I mean, I'll take small victories. I appreciate that it's slowed down. Our rents have all just really gone up. And that's to reflect the past. Next year will reflect what it is now will be our future. So let's say inflation dropped down to something spectacular like 3%. Well, then the next year, when they look at rent increases, it'll be closer to the 3%, which would be pretty awesome. This year was closer to 12%, which really sucked. Okay. Let's see, do we have anything else? Oh, next generation get free energy technology. You practically have it now. They just won't use it. You know, the answer is stop screwing around about oil and use the oil. Use coal with certain restrictions, which coal plants in the U.S. long ago cleaned their act up. And then look at the newer nuclear reactors. They've got some amazing ones. They're like cartridges. And so the cleanup and the change out and all of that is it's just fantastic. And it turns out that the waste from a nuclear power plant is now usable in batteries that could operate your laptop or a car without all the expense and pollution to the planet. You know, it kills me that the people that most cry about, you know, what's happening to the planet are such big advocates, you know, to electric cars, which are a massive disaster to the planet, but it happens over there, so, you know, we can ignore that. You know, if they quit playing politics against each other and just focus on things like Elon Musk, you know, let's actually do something. A lot of these issues would just vanish. They said inflation was caused by high fuel prices. When fuel prices lowered, inflation remained the same. It does take a while. Fuel prices not strictly caused by high fuel prices. However, it's the major driver in economics, always has been. You can always trace it. If you go back and look at fuel prices and when they spike, you can see corresponding effect to inflation. However, if the rest of your economy is stable, it will have a minimal effect. But if everything's gone to hell, then it's gonna drag everything worse than it would have been. But there's no doubt that fuel prices are absolutely the worst thing when it comes to inflation. When you've got a scarcity of fuel, I mean, gas, oil runs everything. I mean, clothing and containers and everything you can think of is somehow related to oil. And that's what kills me. You know, it's like, well, stop using fossil fuels. Well, first of all, oil never did come from fossils, so that's kind of crazy. I mean, they found the equivalent in Jupiter's moons. I don't think there were dinosaurs there dying and creating oil, but that's a whole nother pet peeve. It's here. We can use it. We have a supply that will last us at least another 100 years. And if we get our act together, we can actually make those electric vehicles work. We could actually make nuclear energy work. Even today, we have nuclear energy that is very safe and would work. Even when it was in existence years ago, nuclear energy on the whole, even though there were some major catastrophic events, but on the whole, it was a relatively safe operation. But now the things that failed, they've actually cured. And they have these things in self-contained modules that can plug in, plug out. And it's crazy that they're not doing it, but they're not doing it because it's political. Because the minute you say anything about we're going to have nuclear reactors, you got people with blue hair that are going to light their head on fire, run around screaming and howling and calling for the blood of whoever, you know. So it's just not, I mean, who wants to fight the battle? It gets pretty ugly. What do you think of the war in the Red Sea? Oil prices going higher. I don't have time to talk about what I think of it. What I think about it doesn't really matter. You have a bunch of corrupt, incompetent people running the world, it seems, and they're going to do what they're going to do. You know, it's same as it's ever been. It's just 100 times worse, and it's very sad, and it makes me very glad to be here, because all the things that are going to go crazy, if they do, will happen pretty far away. And even if it happens here, it'll be so much less than what happens there. So I'm very grateful for that. I have faith in, the Canadian populace and the U.S. populace, that at some point they're going to be fed up, and it's going to be a pox on all the bums, and take back control. You lost government of the people, no matter what party. I mean, they're all corrupt. They're all scumbags, and they're all in it for themselves. And, it's why you have people that talk about ABC as their top thing, and you have politicians that completely ignore ABC and do what will profit them. It's like, you get the government you vote for, I guess. Well, unless it's COVID and 81 million ballots are sent out to nobody, then maybe, Anyway, I think we've had enough. Are there any other questions? I got way off track today. I'm sorry. I'm more thinking out loud of things that I think of on a on a pretty daily basis. But anyway, you hung in there. There's a bunch of people that watched today, and I got nice contributions. I thank you. That will be going into use this week. I got some things planned. Sebastian, you didn't say, are you still here, or did you go back to the U.S.? I like to retire in Armenia, but my main concern is language speaking Spanish. Depends on where you plan on, well, you say retire in Armenia, I wouldn't worry about it. I love Armenia. I'm in Chicago. Sorry to hear that, buddy. Get your ass back here. Hurry up. I'll email you. Okay. Yeah, I thought you had said you were going back, but he's got a he works in the U.S., but he bought himself a condo here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be available now and then to rent for a week or two. Email me and tell me if that's true or not, and we'll put some photos together and let people know, because people are always asking, and you know, I don't know. I mean, but I know that building. I know where it's located, and you know, I think people would enjoy staying there. Okay, so that's it. I don't know if I can end this normally or not, but I'm going to end it. Thank you all. Thank you for listening to my diatribe. I know I probably offended some of you, but you know, we should all get to say what we think, even if you disagree with me. I mean, don't hate me. If you have a different opinion, I don't hate you, you know. So we can all have our opinions. Mine formed on, it's not just I sit here and just conjure up something. I actually want to know, and I actually dig and research and watch, and you know, it's, and a lot of the stuff that I talked about today is just common sense. So anyway, we'll end it here. Thank you. I will see you next week, and hopefully I'll have some news, something cool, and we'll end it. Ciao.
Oh,